We are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 2, Chapter 9. Chapter 9 is called Answers by Citing the Lord's Version, and the text for today is text 33. So thank you very much, Prabhuji, for making time. And please accept our Danvat Pranams on behalf of everybody who have joined the group, are about to join, and would be listening to this later on as a recording. So, Hare Krishna, I hand over to you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Strangely, my video, I'm trying to click and it's not starting. I don't know whether there is a bug with Zoom. So would you like me, should I maybe, should I leave the call and try and come back in? Or should I try and do that?
That would be a good idea, Prabhuji.
Okay, give me 1 second.
And if it doesn't work, then we can do it without seeing you, but let's try once.
Okay.
Till then, can we do the Mangalacharan?
Please, and you can even read the Sanskrit for the verse, and then I'll rejoin in that.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have any volunteers for Mangalacharan? Hitesh, are you able to do the Mangalacharan, please? Hare Krishna, you are muted. Hare Krishna, am I audible?
Yes, you are, Mataji.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Prabhuji has just joined us. I think now he can put his video on as well.
Ah, there we go. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, we are able to see you. So
okay.
We were also adjusting our mics and things in your absence, so we haven't done anything. So we can start, we can hand over to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So should I start off with Mangalacharan? Do we have time?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Om Jnana Tirmiranasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanyam Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jetam Surto Pangor Mama Mandir Matergati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpatrumadaha Srimad Ratnagara Simhasanasto Srimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prishtalibi Sevya Manosmarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsi Vata Tatastitaha Karshan Venu Svanir Gopi Gopinata Shriyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangurlangayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Bande Shri Guru Dinataranam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Grantara Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chevam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shlokir Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So, as Mataji quite rightly said, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, 9th chapter, 33rd verse. And as she rightly pointed out, this is the Chaturshloki Bhagavat. And it is arguably, I would say, probably in conjunction with the 10th canto, the most important, the most commentated on, the most closely scrutinized part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, both in terms of the Lord and in terms of the commentaries of the Acharyas. 4 verses only, but actually I'll start off with an anecdote, which is between Hari Sari Prabhu. I think was it Hari Sari? It was almost certainly, it was either Hari Sari Prabhu or it was, no, it was Hari Sari Prabhu, and I think it was at the manor. But Srila Prabhupada was translating, and as many of you know, Srila Prabhupada would wake up in the early hours of the morning to give us his Bhaktivedanta purports. And Srila Prabhupada had a bell, and all of a sudden, late at night or early in the morning, kind of 1 or 2 a.m., the bell started ringing, and Srila Prabhupada's personal servant, Hari Sari Prabhu, ran into the room, and he was half asleep, but he came and he said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." And Srila Prabhupada was sitting and translating, and I think he had a copy of the Bhagavad Gita open as part of his commentary. Maybe he was translating Bhagavatam, but he had the Bhagavad Gita open. And Srila Prabhupada said, if you just understand one verse of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, then your life can become perfect. Hari Sari Prabhu was a little bit bewildered because he said, okay, that's a wonderful realization, Srila Prabhupada, but did you need to wake me up in the middle of the morning to explain it? So, but Hari Sari thought, okay, this must be very important. So he was contemplating that, and then he drifted back off to sleep. And just as he was drifting back off to sleep, the bell rang again. I said, oh no, what is it? He ran into the room, and Srila Prabhupada said, even if you understand one line of the Bhagavad Gita, your life will become perfect. So Hari Sari Prabhu said, that is profound. But I need to be woken up in order to understand this truth. So then Hari Sari Prabhu went back and he started taking rest again. And sure enough, just as he was falling asleep, the bell started ringing again. So he said, oh, it must be important this time. Ran into the room, and Srila Prabhupada looked at Hari Sari, and his eyes were very wide. And he said, if you even understand one word of the Bhagavad Gita, your life will become perfect. And Srila Prabhupada looked at him with a piercing gaze, and then broke out into a very big smile. But Hari Sari Prabhu understood the point that actually the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are Shabda Brahma. They are eternal. They are non-different from himself. And even a small realization in truth is enough to deliver us. So we may think that how much information can be kept in 4 shlokas of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Well, if Srila Prabhupada said that even one word, if properly understood, is enough to deliver us, how much then can be there in the 4 verses of the Chaturshloki Bhagavat? Now, Chaturshloki Bhagavat, 33, 34, 35, 36 of this particular chapter. And it's interesting because actually there are at least 3 occasions where the Supreme Lord explains these 4 verses. The Supreme Lord himself, what to speak of all the acharyas and what to speak of all the other commentators. So there is this instance where, and I'm doing it in this, so I'm giving an introduction before we read the verse, just so we can have some context. There is this instance where Krishna is directly communicating with Lord Brahma. There is later on in the Srimad Bhagavatam where Krishna re-explains this to Uddhav. So there are many Gitas. There is the Bhagavad Gita, there is the Brahmar Gita, there's the Venu Gita, there is the Gopi Gita. But then there's ultimately the last instruction of Krishna is the Uddhav Gita. Just before Krishna is about to leave, he goes to his dear friend Uddhav. And Srila Prabhupada explained to us, and also the Acharyas explained, the later instruction will always supersede the previous instruction. So the last instruction, the most important instruction that Krishna gives is to Uddhav just before he is leaving the planet. Of course, the Lord, all of the Lord's words are important, but his final, his cream, his final instruction is there in the Uddhav Gita. Sorry, excuse me for 1 second. And therefore, the fact that in the Uddhav Gita, the Lord decides to bring up this topic again, really emphasizes the importance of this Chaturshloki Bhagavat. But then finally, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Mahaprabhu's mission, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Srila Prabhupada is lauded because he is taking the Gauravani, the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to destroy Nirvishesha and Shunyavadi. What is Nirvishesha and Shunyavadi? Nirvishesh means without form, that they say that the ultimate reality is that the Lord is formless. And Shunyavadi, Shunya means 0. Shunyavad means voidism. So the Gauravani, the Vani of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that Srila Prabhupada is taking, is there to destroy the Nirvishesha and Shunyavadi. That is Mahaprabhu's mission, of course. That's one of his missions, and ultimately it's to give Vraj Bhakti. But a prerequisite of entering into Vrindavan is that you don't call Krishna and his gopis Maya. Oh, you're in Maya. This is just a temporary thing. When you achieve the highest realization, you'll go to Brahma. You must, of course, know that the Lord has an eternal form. His associates have an eternal form, and that you don't consider them some Mayic reality. There's some very famous YouTube personalities now, so-called gurus, who call Krishna that guy, that man. No, Krishna is the Adipurusha. He's Ishvara Paramam. He's not just a guy doing something. His Leela is eternal and he has a supreme position. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in order to reveal Krishna's glory, also uses this Chaturshloki Bhagavat. So before I get into the verse today, I just wanted to make that clear that the Lord, at least on 3 occasions, himself is elaborating on this Chaturshloki Bhagavat. How important then is it that we delve deep into this small yet incredibly profound part of the Srimad Bhagavatam? So, Mataji, did you want us, so when you said you wanted to read a paragraph, did you want me to read the verse and then should I read the purport, or was there something else you had in mind?
Prabhuji, as you like, because it's a long purport. I thought it'll be better if we'll take this shloka for the whole week. So we can do bits and pieces of it instead of reading the whole purport, and then we'll exhaust our time. So maybe we can do 1 paragraph a day. Or
Okay.
however, if you want to give the overview of the whole text, that is also fine.
You please lead. So if you just want us to touch upon 1 paragraph.
Yes, so that we can exhaust the whole paragraph and then move on to because I guess this has a lot of meaning. That is what I was advised, that take a whole week on each and every verse of the Chaturshloki.
Fantastic. Okay, so we'll go into the verse, and I think that's okay. We'll go into the verse, but I think that's an important point to touch upon, actually, even before we start. My Guru Maharaj, and I'm sure many other spiritual masters, would have retreats whereby he would take a topic or a particular book or scripture, and he would give a 7-week discourse, but he would always bookend that discourse with the proviso that this is just an introduction. This is just an overview to pique your interest and to introduce certain concepts. There is no way that in 1 hour or even a week of 1 hour, 7 hours, that you will fully be able to exhaust this subject. There is so much, ever expanding meaning. So I would strongly urge all of you, and I will give some other references, both to read the purport, and I will give some extracts from Chaitanya Charitamrita and purports from Srila Prabhupada, and even from Bhagavad Gita, which will give you a fuller picture. And that is just the starting point. There's commentaries by Jiva Goswami, by Krishnadas Kaviraj, by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which will give even greater meaning to this. And once you delve into this topic, your understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam will be amplified and enhanced. Okay. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 9th chapter, verse 33. Aham evasham evagre nanyadyat sad asat param paschad aham yat etachcha yo vashishyata so smyaham yo vashishyeta so smyaham aham evasham evagre nanyadyat sad asat param paschad aham yat etachcha Yodveshyate sosmyaham, yo vashishyeta sosmyaham, aham evasham evagre, nanyadyat sat asat param, paschad aham yat etachcha, yo vashishyeta sosmyaham, yo vashishyeta sosmyaham, yo vashishyeta sosmyaham. Translation. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Let me read the purport. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhai Charanarvindam Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We should note very carefully that the personality of Godhead is addressing Lord Brahma and specifying with great emphasis himself, pointing out that it is he, the personality of Godhead, who existed before the creation. It is he only who maintains the creation. And it is he only who remains after the annihilation of the creation. Brahma is also a creation of the Supreme Lord. The impersonalist puts forth the theory of oneness in the sense that Brahma, also being the same principle of I, because he is an emanation from the I, the absolute truth, is identical with the Lord, the principle of I. And thus there is nothing more than the principle of I as explained in this verse. Now, do you understand what Prabhupada is trying to say? He's setting up and there have been many commentaries from people who have come to the conclusion that because Brahma comes from the Supreme Lord, he is therefore non-different from the Supreme Lord. But we could say, vegetables come from mud, from the earth. I don't see people saying, well, the vegetable has come from the mud, and therefore the vegetable and the mud must be of the same quality. Therefore, let's keep the vegetable in the earth and let's take a handful of mud and have, aloo mud sabji or aloo mud shak. It doesn't make sense, right? And that's what Srila Prabhupada is trying to get at. Or similarly, if you could say that the product and the source is the same, then okay, Plant your seeds in a beetroot. Plant your seeds in a Loki and see what happens. Plant a tree in a Loki. It won't work. The soil has a function, and the soil is the generative function, and the product is different. Of course, that there is a causal link, but there is a fundamental difference between the soil and its product. And there's nothing more than the principle as explained in this verse. Accepting the argument of the impersonalist is to be admitted that the Lord is the creator I, and that the Brahma is the created I. Therefore, there is a difference between the two I's, namely the predominator and the predominated I, the predominator I and the predominated I. Therefore, there are still two I's, even accepting the argument of the impersonalist. But we must note carefully that these two I's are accepted in the Vedic literature, Kato Upanishad, in the sense of quality. The Kato Upanishad says, Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam, Eko Bahunamyo Vidhati Kaman. The creator I and the created I are both accepted in the Vedas as qualitatively one, because both of them are Nityas and Chetanas. But the singular I is the creator I, and the created I's are of plural number because there are many I's like Brahma and those generated by Brahma. Okay, I mean, I'll stop there because I don't want to. Well, okay, let me finish this paragraph, and then if tomorrow they want to, because I think that the point is only made fully in this by the end of the paragraph. It is the simple truth. The Father creates or begets a son, and the Son also creates many other sons, and all of them may be one as human beings. But at the same time, from the Father, the Son and the grandsons are all different. The Son cannot take the place of the Father, nor can the grandsons. Simultaneously, the Father, the Son, and the grandson are one and different also. So let's think of some father-grandson relationship. So we had Hiranyakashipu, we had Prahlad, and then we have Prahlad's grandson, Bali Maharaj, and in between, I've forgotten that personality's name, but we had two great devotees and two demons. You can't say that father and son are interchangeable. We say Prahlad Nishingadev. We don't say Hiranyakashipu Nishingadev and offer our pranam. Oh, because it's father and son. It's interchangeable. No. The father and son are of different qualities. Equally, Prahlad's son, whose name has just skipped my mind, and his grandson is Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj took the Lord's foot on his head. Bali Maharaj was the one who instructed Ravan, don't insult Sri Ramachandra, and tried to give him that good counsel. He is a great devotee. We can't say that he is interchangeable with members of his family who are Asuric. So there is, even though the cause may be the same, we understand that the products are different. The predominator and the predominated. Same origin, but they are different in quality. As human beings, they are one, but as relativities, they are different. Therefore, the relativities of the creator and the created, or the predominator and the predominated, have been differentiated in the Vedas by saying that the predominator I is the feeder of the predominated I's. And thus there is a vast difference between the two principles of I. He feeds. The predominator provides for the predominated. And therefore there is a difference. The little girl comes from the womb of the mother. So you could say there are two parts of one whole, an extension of one whole. But does the mother take the baby's milk, or does the baby take the mother's milk? The baby is dependent on the mother to provide. Predominator, predominated. Same body at one stage, but predominator, predominated. We can't say that it's not different. If there is a criminal father and an honest son, like Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad, if Hiranyakashipu is a great sinner, does Prahlad have to accept the sin? Does he go to jail? No. He is a great devotee, and he has a direct personal relationship with the Lord. His father is having his guts torn out and garlanded around the Lord's neck. You can't say, oh, but they're an extension. It doesn't make sense. So in the same way, to say that because we are an extension of the Lord, therefore we are imbued with all of the Lord's potency. Of course, in terms of quality, we are the same. Satchit Ananda Vigraha. But we have the same quality, but to a minute quantity. You have the ocean. The ocean can make waves, right? The ocean can pound a cliff and destroy, huge cliff faces. The ocean can have a tidal wave and subsume a whole city. Then you have a droplet of water, salt water. Yes, it's salty. Yes, it's wet. In one sense, it's absolutely identical to the ocean, but it can't pound a cliff. You can't find whales, a blue whale living in a tiny droplet of water. You can't sail a boat across a tiny droplet of water. So in quality, identical. In quantity, vastly different. And to equate, therefore, that one is non-different from the other makes no sense. It makes no sense. And therefore, the Mayavadi tendency towards that, as Srila Prabhupada describes elsewhere, was because that Lord Shiva came to re-establish the Vedas according to people's capacity. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu re-endorsed this. Yes, Lord Shiva came as Shankaracharya, and he gave this Nirvisheshavad to reintroduce the Vedic concept in a way that people who were following Buddhism or Voidism, where they didn't forget about believing in a personality of Godhead, they even said that the existence of everything is illusion. They actually said that there's nothingness. So just to re-establish the concept of eternal existence, Lord Shiva went from Shunyavadi to Nirvisheshvad. And then from Nirvisheshvad, we came to all the different Dvaitavad, Shuddha Dvait, Vashishta Dvait, and Dvaita Dvait. And then from there, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. Again, all of these concepts we should understand. Actually, if you go to Mayapur and you go to the Samadhi temple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in that temple, there are the 4 great Vaishnava acharyas, from whom Chaitanya Mahaprabhu borrowed 2 principles. So there's Ramanuja, Madhvacharya. We have come in Madhvacharya's line, which is Brahma's line. Ramanuja is from the Sri Sampradaya or Lakshmi Sampradaya. Madhvacharya, there's Vishnu Swami, and then there's Nimbarka Acharya from the 4 Kumaras. Vishnu Swami is in the Rudra Sampradaya. So these 4 great acharyas were responsible for these different vads of philosophy. Shuddha Dvait, Dvait, Vashishta Dvait, and Dvaita Dvait Vad. So these 2, they're all personal, they say, but they have slightly different take on the relationship between the Supreme Lord and the soul. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took 2 principles from all, along with his own perfect philosophy as Srimati Radharani, and created the perfect synthesis of understanding simultaneously one and different. The soul, the spirit soul, the living entities are one with the Lord. In what sense? That we are of the same quality, but different from the Lord. In what sense? In that we are of different quantities. And therefore, the nature of our activities can be somewhat similar, but simultaneously, the nature of our activities are entirely different. And we will always be the predominated, and the ocean will be the predominator. If you get a droplet of water in the ocean and you put them together, the nature of the ocean will predominate over the nature of the droplet. You have a droplet of water. It's like if you ever get to, I don't know if you've ever had water fights, water guns. You have a little water gun, handgun like this. And if somebody comes with a hose, like a fire hose, what will happen? One stream will predominate over the other, both water, but one will clearly predominate. Its nature will predominate over another. If you have 2 rivers, you have a little stream and you have a gushing brook, what will happen? Will this little stream push the nature of that river? No, that will predominate over. So in the same way, we are of the same quality, but of a different quantity. And therefore, the Lord will predominate over the living entity. So I would, we've only got half an hour left. And it's actually very wise to spend a week on this topic because there is so much to say. I think I will what I will do is I will focus, first of all, on introducing the Chatra Shloki. So is today your first day discussing this topic? Okay, great. So what I'll do, Mataji, is I will introduce the topic of Chatra Shloki and what it stands for. And then we can break down this verse a little bit more according to the Acharyas. And then I wanted to read a bit of a surprise. Srila Prabhupada has actually written another purport on this exact same verse. Does everybody know that? Another purport on the exact same verse, but I'll leave that for the end of the class. And it's written by Srila Prabhupada, and it's not in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's just a bit of a hint. So, Chatra Shloki. Chatra Shloki, Krishnadas Kaviraj, who is the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, he has written in Madhya Lila, 25th chapter, 102nd verse, the following. Bhagavatera Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana Chatur Shlokite Prakata Tara Kariyache Lakshana. Okay. The essence of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavatera, is Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Okay, Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana. The relationship with the Supreme Lord, our activities in that connection, and the goal of life. And this Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana, Chatur Shlokite Prakata Tara Kariyache Lakshana. Right? These Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana is manifest in the 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Chatra Shloki. Everything is explained in those verses. So the official biographer of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who we know gives the final interpretation thus far of the Chatra Shloki, of the Supreme Lord interpreting these 4 shlokas. So his official biographer is saying that everything that you need to know about Srimad Bhagavatam is contained in these 3 concepts: Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. And these 3 concepts are properly delineated within the Chatra Shloki. Okay, so that's the starting point. So let's go into a bit more detail about Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. What do these concepts mean? So actually, if people have the verse ahead of them, 2.9.33, or if you have a copy of the Bhagavatam, or maybe you have it on screen, if I could ask everybody to go 2 verses back to 2.9.31. 2.9.31. If you don't have it, I'll try and read out the Sanskrit again. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Jnanam Paramaghuyam Me Yat Vijnana Samanvitam Sa Rahasyam Tad Angam Cha Grihana Gaditam Maya. Okay. The personality of Godhead said, knowledge about me as described in the scriptures is very confidential and has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up carefully. So we're trying to understand what Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana is. Sambandha means the relationship with the Lord. Abhideya means the process of acting on that relationship. And Prayojana means the ultimate outcome, the lakshana, the supreme goal, which is love of Godhead. Now, to understand these 3 concepts, Jiva Goswami has looked at this verse 2 verses before, and he's identified 4 different words. Gyan, right? If everyone has the verse open, you can see that the word Gyan is in the first line. Jnanam Paramaghuyam Me. And the second line is Yat Vigyan Samanvitaha. So Gyan and Vigyan. These are 2 concepts he's taken out. The third concept he's taken out is Sa Rahasyam, devotional service. And the 4th concept he took out is Tad Angam Cha. Tad Angam Cha, which in the translation is talked about as the necessary paraphernalia for that process. Necessary paraphernalia for the process. So we've got Gyan and Vigyan, knowledge and realized knowledge. We've got Sarahasyam, devotional service, and then tad angam cha, which is the necessary paraphernalia for the process of devotional service. So Jiva Goswami says that this verse actually introduces the concepts which help us fully understand Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayojana. So this is quite a philosophical class. I hope everybody's still with me and this is still of interest. I know it's quite technical, but I think this is important to understand this detail. So Sambandha. Sambandha means the relationship, right? Imagine you've got a big ball of clay, right? Big ball of wet clay, you know, potter's wheel and a big ball of wet clay. If you didn't know it was clay, you may just think that is just a big mess. Like, what is that doing? What do I do with this? Let's just get rid of it. What use is this big ball of clay? So life, the human form of life, is like a ball of wet clay. At first glance, it may seem confusing. What do I do with this? It's just messy, you know, maybe play with it a little bit. But until you understand how to treat clay, you take a little bit of the clay, you can mold it, you can roll it, you can shape it, you know, you can spin it. They have a potter's wheel, they spin it, they open it up, then you leave it in the fire, you fire it under high temperature, and then you can glaze it. And then what can you do with that clay? That clay can go from being a big lump mess, a big lump of mess that doesn't have any particular purpose. But if you understand the relationship between clay, a wheel, fire, and glaze, and the sequence of putting it together, you can take what is like a raw attribute, messy raw attribute, into something of incredible importance. You can eat off a plate, you can drink out of a pot, you can eat off of a pot, you can make an offering to the Lord with a pot. There's so many things, you know. What's Krishna always doing? What's the gopis always holding? They're holding pots. Meri Matki, there's a song in Barsana, Meri Matki, which they sing on Radhastami. And they're talking about how the matki full of makhan, they're going to run away from Krishna with their matki. So Sambandha Gyan is understanding how different elements of our life come together properly. The only problem with today's world, Prabhupada said, is that all facility is there, but people just don't understand how to use it. So Sambandha Gyan means understanding. What are the 5 topics of the Bhagavad Gita? There's Jiva. There's Jiva. There's Prakriti. There's Ishvara. There's Karma. And there's Kala. Jiva means the soul, right? The soul, the living entities. There's Prakriti. There's the material nature. And then there's Ishvara. So most people they don't even understand the first topic, that they are the soul. They think they're the body. Finished. Because you act in a way where if you neglect the body, you neglect the soul, you're just on the bodily platform. How can you act towards your ultimate best interest? How can you act to a way which is actually going to give you deep pleasure? Okay, so you understand there's a jiva. Then the Mayavadis say Prakriti, material nature. Everything is Maya, therefore even my form is Maya. Even Ishvara is Maya. Finished, fall down. You can't be happy because the soul is looking for enjoyment by reciprocating with Ishvara. They think either Ishvara is Maya or I will become Ishvara. Finished. No enjoyment. So you see, Sambandha Gyan means taking the different components of life and piecing it together in a way which is to our ultimate benefit. Jiva, Prakriti, we are covered by Prakriti. Ishvara, but by worshipping Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, by his mercy, we can overcome the Prakriti. Karma, we have to endeavor, Kala, and it will take time, this process. But then we can achieve the mercy of Ishvara, right? That is Sambandha Gyan. That is piecing together the components of life for a successful outcome. So Sambandha Gyan is very important. It's understanding the different dynamics, right? So we've taken the example of clay. Abhidheya is after I understand who am I, notionally. Gyan means to understand theoretically, right? Vigyan means to have deep realization. When we're young devotees, they said, there's no enjoyment in this material world. We may be in our teenage years, we may be in our early 20s, we may be young, we may be older. We may have some understanding of that, but don't tell me that, that delicious, or maybe some of you were pure that you never ate onion and garlic, but maybe somebody, you go to a wedding and there's delicious darbeli and, there's sliced onions and things, and you may not go and eat it, but maybe a part of your mind is thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful if I just went and took one bite of that sour onions, chakpata with all sorts of masala on? Because we have the gyan. Different foods and different consciousness will affect us in different ways. But we haven't got the vigyan. So the taste to enjoy still remains. The taste to enjoy this world still remains. Vigyan is when you take Bharat Maharaj. He's at the level of bhava, but he becomes attached to a deer. And he thinks, oh, what's the harm? I just take care of this deer. Then he comes back as a deer. And then in the next life, when he comes back as Jada Bharat, Vigyan. He knows anything to do with this means I'm going to go to an unknown destination for unknown suffering. I'm not taking that risk. That is the difference between Gyan and Vigyan. So Sambandha, to have real understanding of Sambandha, first you understand the theory, but then the experience of life as a sadhaka. You become what? A kinchana gochara. You become materially exhausted. You know that there isn't enjoyment. You don't need to hear it. Trust me. You know there's no enjoyment. Hari bol, I need to get out of here. Where is the nearest exit? Where is the nearest exit? So these two components make Sambandha Gyan. So ball of clay, we understand how it works. We've got our Sambandha Gyan. Now it's time to do something with it. So abhidheya means actually physically getting your hands dirty and getting involved in the process. You get the clay, you're spinning the wheel, you're manipulating the clay to make something. We talked about bhakti lata bij. Let's use the terminology of bhakti lata bij, the creeper, the seed of the creeper of devotion. We want bhakti. We want the Lord. So that is our sadhya. That is our goal. So we need to plant that seed. We need to water that seed with our sadhana. We need to cultivate that seed. That is abhideya. We worship the Vaishnavas. We read, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaran. We're reading, we're hearing, we're remembering, we're chanting. We're engaging in service of the devotees. We're offering prayers. We're worshiping the deities. We're preaching. We're trying to do so many things. That is the abhideya. That's the process, right? We're shaping the clay of our life. We're watering the thing, and we're cultivating that creeper of devotion. And prayojana is the final product. That's the beautiful vase or the beautiful matka matki that you've created. That is the beautiful creeper which has taken you to the destination, which is the lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, Shri Shri Radha Govinda. So these are the three distinct understandings. Now, how and why do the Acharyas say that this is the essence of the Bhagavatam? This is just a concept. Why is this the essence of the Bhagavatam? Oh, so sorry, I should link it back to that verse which I mentioned before, 31, which is 2 verses before the verse that we had here. So Jiva Goswami talked about Gyan and Vigyan. Those two make Sambandha. Tad Angam, he talks about Tad Angam. Tad Angam means paraphernalia for the process. And Sa Rahasyam means the devotion. So Tad Angam in this verse, the necessary paraphernalia for actually engaging in service. And Sa Rahasyam means the experience of devotional service. So we need to understand what is favorable and what is unfavorable for executing bhakti. What is the association that is favorable? What is the association that is unfavorable? What are the foodstuff that are favorable? What are the foodstuff that are unfavorable? What is the schedule which is favorable? What is the time of getting up, the time of sleeping, the daily schedule, which is favorable? What is the time of, and at the moment, I am not on that favorable schedule. I'll just confess that now. And I can see it has an impact on your sadhana. So this is Tad Angam. And then finally, Sa Rahasyam. What is genuine bhakti? What does it feel like? What are the symptoms of bhakti? Many people think that the experience between that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is just a sentimentalist. And in fact, we'll come on to that if we have time. They say, why is he crying? Sannyasi doesn't just sit around crying all day. Do something practical. Read the Vedanta Sutras. Why is this guy just crying or making a loud noise? They don't understand what this difference between mundane crying and crying out of separation for the Lord. They have no experience of that path. So that's Sarahasya. So Jiva Goswami is saying, when we understand Jnana and Vijnana, we can have Sambandha. When we understand Tad Angam, we can understand when we are genuinely engaging in service and cultivating our Bhakti Lata Beat. And when we understand Sarahasya, devotional service, when we understand the sentiments of devotion, then we know that we're making progress. And when we know that we're making progress, we endeavor harder. And then we make more progress. And so we endeavor harder. Then we make more progress and we endeavor harder. And then we have more Vijnana. We have more Vijnana. When we see the bliss of Bhakti and the relatively superficial enjoyment of this world, we want to engage in more service. We engage in more service. We get more taste. We have more realization. So you see, it's a feedback loop. They're mutually supportive. It's not very linear. One feeds the other, feeds the other. We have some Gyan to engage in some service. So we get some taste. So we have more Vigyan to engage in more service. So we get more taste. And these things are mutually supportive. It's like a propeller propelling us upwards, right? Up to the lotus feet, you see. Because taste for the Lord gives more Vigyan about the futility of this material world, which maybe we get more Gyan because we want to read more, we engage in more service, and so on and so forth. So that's how Vastu Trai works. And when you then read the Srimad Bhagavatam, you will gain so much Gyan. You will gain so much Vigyan. Like one Vigyan that I got is that you take Kardama Muni. I love this pastime. Kardama Muni, Devahuti, Kapila. And for those of you that don't know the pastime, Kardama Muni is a great yogi. Devahuti is the daughter of Manu. She wants a magnificent son. Kardama Muni wants to do meditation in the forest. But he says, okay, we'll enjoy, I'll grant you a son, but then I'm going back to my meditation to find the Lord. Kardama Muni gives Devahuti what son? Kapila. Who is Kapila? The Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then Kardama Muni goes back to the forest. But Kardama Muni, you're going off to the forest for what? Your son, the Supreme Lord, is your son. So where are you going off to? Right? You're going off, but your son is over here. So the point of that is that we have to be very clear. Gyan, Vigyan, I'll be there, and then the Prayojana. There's even another time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's in the ocean in ecstasy, and a fisherman catches him. And the fisherman touches the body of Mahaprabhu, and he feels overwhelmed with emotion, and he thinks he's gone mad because he can't recognize the value of what he has, which is more important than any fish and any gold you'll get from selling that fish, or any meal you have from eating that fish, is that you've got pure love of Godhead, but you can't even value it. So that's why understanding these different concepts will help the sadhaka progress steadily, understand the different signposts along their journey of bhakti. I have not even scratched what I wanted to talk about today, and we've only got 10 minutes left. Okay, so I hope those concepts are clear. Gyan, Vigyan, Tadangam, Sarahasyam. The first two are Sambandha, middle one is Abhidaya, final one is Prayojana. These are eternal principles. These are not just principles for the material world. These principles pervade the Bhagavatam, like Artha, Dhamma, Kama, Moksha. These are things which just are principles of the body. Sambandha, Abhidaya, Prayojana pervade the Bhagavatam. They will pervade the life of a sadhaka, of a spiritual practitioner. And it's very important to be able to see, understand what is what, so we can signpost our way on our spiritual life. And what is a good way if we are struggling with fully realizing? There are 3 verses which I say, which maybe people have picked up on, which go a little something like Jetam Suruto Pangor Mama Mandir Mater Gati Mat Sarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano. So Radha Madan Mohan. Radha Madan Mohan is the deity of Srila Sanatana Goswami. And this Radha Madan Mohan, is the deity of Sambandha. It's the deity of Sambandha, Radha Madan Mohan, the first deity to be re-established by the disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is the first deity that we should put into the core of our heart, Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan. Why? Why Madan Mohan? This name gives the clue of how Madan Mohan, we should pray to Madan Mohan for Sambandha Gyan. Who? Madan Mohan. Madana is who? Cupid. Cupid is what? The chief in charge of creating illusory attachments. Loving attachment to woman, loving attachment to a man, some people name their cars. Some people name their boats. They're so attached. Some people name their favorite jerseys. I've had this t-shirt since I was 6. You know, there's a shop called Marks and Spencer's. You know, you can get another one. Right? They become attached. Cupid gives us, oh, I'm so attached to I can't live without my phone. Can't live without my phone. Can't live without my dog. Can't live without my car. Madan Mohan. So Cupid can enchant anyone, but Krishna can enchant even Cupid. So if we want Krishna to enchant Cupid and take Cupid out of our life, then Krishna is then responsible for enchanting. So we go to Madan Mohan. So we no longer have this attachment to enjoyment in this material world, but we can get Sambandha Gyan. We see things for what they really are, and we can act on that basis. So we say this verse. This is in CC, Adi Leela, 1st chapter, 15th verse. But Srila Prabhupada often used to mention this verse. Then after this verse, we have the 16th verse. These are all in order. And this verse is for Abhideya. Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadaha Srimad Ratnagara Simhasinasto Srimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prashtalibi Sevya Manosmarami. So this verse, in a temple of jewels in Vrindavan, underneath a desire tree, Sri Sri Radha Govinda, served by their most confidential associates, sit upon an effulgent throne. I offer my obeisances unto them. So this verse is dedicated to Radha Govinda. Radha Govinda, Govinda, the one who gives pleasure to the senses, one who gives pleasure to the cows. It's a practical thing. How do we derive that pleasure? What is the most pleasurable engagement? It is service unto the Supreme Lord. So Radha Govinda is the Ishtadeva of Srila Rupa Goswami. And it is the preeminent deity of Vrindavan, Radha Govinda. In fact, there were 10,000 pujaris who would light over 100,000 diyas every day. It was a 7-story temple, 3 or 4 of which were destroyed by Aurangzeb. But even still, if you go to Vrindavan, magnificent building. And that is the process of devotional service. And interestingly, the first place that Srila Prabhupada went to was New York. And the first deity that Srila Prabhupada established in New York was Radha Govinda. So Prabhupada came to establish the process, the abhideya of devotional service. Shriman rasa rasa rambhi vamsi vata tatastitaha karshan venu svaner gopi gopinata shriyestunaha. So we've had Sanatan Goswami, who brought us Radha Madan Mohan, exhumed Radha Madan Mohan. Actually, Krishna's grandson 5,000 years before had established this deity, but it had been lost. But Sanatan Goswami found Radha Madan Mohan first and built a beautiful temple and gave us Sambandha Gyan. Rupa Goswami exhumed Radha Govinda and gave us this Abhideya Gyan. And Madhu Pandit, but ultimately Raghunath Das Goswami gave us Srila Radha Gopinath. Radha Gopinath. And Radha Gopinath is what? Radha Gopinath means the Prayojana Gyan. The ultimate achievement. Gopinath is Krishna, who is the Lord of the Gopis. Why would this deity represent Prayojana Gyan? Because who loves Krishna like the Gopis? Napariyeham. Krishna says, there is no way I can repay you based on your level of devotion and worship of me. The Gopis' love encompasses all the other rasas. It has the jokes and the fraternal friendship of Sakya Ras, of Krishna and the cowherd boys. When Krishna needs attending to, there's that Vatsalya Bhav of the elderly gopis and the way that they take care of Krishna. But then there is a sweetness a sweetness which is so delightful that Krishna again returns to this planet in the mood of Srimati Radharani just to experience that bhav. That is the sweetness of the gopis. And then Gopinath is their Lord. So we pray unto Srila Radha Madan Mohan, unto Radha Govinda Dev, and unto Radha Gopinath to give us Sambandha Gyan, Abhidaya Gyan, and ultimately Prayojana. And I'll read the translation of this verse again. Shriman Rasara Sarambi Vamsivata Tatastitaha Karshan Venu Svaner Gopi Gopinatha Shriyestunaha. Srila Gopinath, who originated the transcendental mellow of the rasa dance, stands on the shore in Vamsivata and attracts the attention of the cowherd damsels with the sound of his celebrated flute. May they all confer upon us their benediction. So just to quickly conclude, and hope we've got time for one or two questions. And again, I didn't even scratch the surface of what I wanted to talk about. We understand that even a small amount properly understood can yield incredible benefit to our life. These 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, bar the 10th canto, are probably the most important part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. They're important. Why? Because they create the apparatus by which we can properly equip ourselves and understand how to progress based on what the Bhagavatam is giving us. Sambandha Gyan, which is formed of Gyan and Vigyan, will give us the understanding of how to understand ourselves, the Supreme Lord, the world around us, and the activities we need to get to the Lord. Abhidaya Gyan will show us how to actually engage in this process of devotional service. And Prayojana will give us the sweetness for which we have always been hankering, and will keep us motivated to carry on with this process. These 3 concepts will propel us not only through the Bhagavatam with the proper realization, but ultimately to our supreme lakshana, our supreme sadhya, our supreme destination, which is the lotus feet of Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Sri Gauranitai, and Srila Prabhupada for all eternity in Goloka Vrindavan. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. I hope that was in some way understandable and not too rushed. Please forgive me if there's any comments, questions, or corrections.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for such a sweet class. And I open it up to any questions or comments. I know we are running out of time, but I think today we can go a little longer if Prabhuji doesn't mind. If there are any questions or comments.
At your service.
Thank you so much. You're so humble. If there are no questions or comments, then Prabhuji, can we request you to read that purport that you told us that you will read for us?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Is it okay to ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for a wonderful class. My question is around desire.
Please.
We are often told not to, you mustn't have desires. And then there is a need for it in some ways, even when you want to go Marks and Spencer's, you're probably going to buy something for devotional service. So I'm just wondering, can you expand a bit more about desires? Because there's good desires and bad desires, obviously.
Absolutely. And that's a brilliant question, Mataji, especially. I mean, so first off, I would say that desire, if you actually understand the function of the soul, Krishna often says in the Bhagavad Gita that nothing in this universe happens without his involvement. I've forgotten that specific verse. And what does that mean? So when I was with Guru Maharaj, you see, effectively the soul and actually the operative factor within this world is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If I want to lift my hand up, I am not actually doing this. The jiva desires, it communicates to the Paramatma based on the karma, right? Either the karma or the surrender of this jiva, the Paramatma will allow it to happen. I, as a tiny jiva, do not have control of anything in this material nature. So everything that happens in my life is based on desire. Some desires will bind me to this world. Some desires will purify me and extricate me from this world. But everything that I can do, as you rightly pointed out, Mataji, is based on desire. Everything. Everything is based on desire. And again, some will bind me to this material world, some will extricate me from this material world. So desire has to be there. Now, again, we can see how this Vastutrai, this Chatur Shloki, has come into play. Vastutrai means Sambandha Abhidaya Prayojana. That philosophical concept is known as Vastutrai. Now, Prayojana, exactly to your point, is there to give us the appropriate desire. The desire for what? The desire to serve and to ultimately be with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why? Because that alone really fulfill what it is that we're trying to achieve in this material world. We may think that having a Ferrari and a 20,000 square foot house and millions of dollars in the bank will make us happy. But we know, just switch on any kind of entertainment news and you will see that all those people are either worried about how they can get more, or worried about how to keep it, or have got stuff and are now no longer happy. So yes, the prayojana gyan, the desire is not a wrong thing, but desire according to Sambandha Gyan, desire to understand the world completely, desire and how to act properly according to that understanding, and desire to achieve that thing which will actually satisfy the soul. The soul, if you give $1,000 to a fish, but you don't give the fish water to swim in, doesn't matter how much money you give to that fish, it will never be happy. In the same way, we are spiritual by nature. If you do not give us a spiritual realm in which to absorb ourselves in, we will never be happy. So that should be our only desire. Fantastic question, Mataji. I hope that somewhat answered your question.
Fantastic, Prabhu. And I hope to hear you again. Are you from England, Prabhu?
The short story is yes. But I'm Indian, born in the US, currently living in the UK, but I travel a lot, Dubai, East Africa, India, and the west coast of the US. So I'm kind of all over. What about yourself, Mataji?
Yes, I live in England, but I'm from Guyana, South America.
Oh, you're from Guyana. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I
Very
never
good.
heard you in England. That's why I asked that question.
I spent a lot of time out of the country, Mataji. So that's
all right. Come back to England, give us some gyan.
100%, Mataji.
Very well. Thank you so much. That was wonderful class, and I only had half of it. So please come and give me the other half.
Oh, 100%.
Haribol. Thank you, Mataji, for allowing me.
Please come every week.
Not a problem. We meet every day on the same link.
Yes, I
same
must
time,
try.
So,
you know what? Every day when I look at the clock, it's past the time. So I'll try
you can join in between as well. And then we record the session so you can listen to them at your leisure.
I know you're very flexy. Thank you. Very kind of you. Thank you, everybody, for putting up with me. Haribol.
Not a problem. Thank you. We learned a lot from your question. Pramila Mataji, do you have a question? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji and Prabhuji, thank you so much. That was such a beautiful class. I just wanted to ask you, so prayojana, is that the stage where the devotee reaches when he or she just enjoys the nectar of devotional service in whatever form, say, for example, reading the Bhagavatam, the Gita, doing the worship of the Lord, whatever form, when that person gets that joy and it means everything to them, is that the state of prayojana?
This is another excellent question, Mataji. Thank you. So my spiritual master, Sri Srimad Bhakti Charaswami Guru Maharaj, he was often confronted. He was a staunch protector of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's presentation of the Gaudiya Siddhanta. And one of the criticism levied, and so I'm going in a roundabout way to try and answer the question. One of the accusations that was levied was that Prabhupada didn't talk about anything rasic. He didn't go into those, which is actually not true. If you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada has delineated everything there. But anyway, there was nothing rasic, you know. What about Raganuga? You know, when you're in that prayojana, you've attained those higher levels. And my Guru Maharaj would often say, what was the occupation? What was the daily activity of Haridas Thakur? The Haridas Thakur who left this world with looking at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's face, being held in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's arms, bathed with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's. What was his daily activity? It was to chant. What is the daily activity of a new bhakta? It is to chant. Are you telling me that are you telling me that Haridas Thakur was not experiencing the highest levels of bhav, that he hadn't achieved that prayojana? He has. So prayojana doesn't mean that our activities have to change externally. The activities are exactly the same. The Goswamis were chanting a Ek Lakh Nam, 164 rounds every single day. And they were the Goswamis of Vrindavan. So it is just the bhav that changes. It's now no longer regimented. It's now no longer a sense of duty, but there is a spontaneous attraction for those activities. So prayojana is, yes, indeed, it is that higher state of absorption, but that doesn't mean, and I'm not sure whether you were suggesting, but some people can suggest that somehow when you achieve your prayojana, when you achieve that spontaneous devotion, that overflowing love, that our activities in this world will change fundamentally. Externally, they may appear different, but internally, you know, the depth and the ras and the bhav is profoundly different. So it's profoundly. I hope that does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any more questions or comments? Yes, Hitesh Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the class. I was just wondering if the word prayojana has any English in terms of management, any word. Because I was even wondering if prayojana is a combination of Sat, Chit, and Anand. So you're talking about chanting, can be anything, but is it a combination of Sat, Chit, Anand?
It may do. I don't have the Sanskrit Shabdakosh, so maybe it could be interpreted in that way, and maybe there is some what's the word? Etymology, the formation of the word where it includes Sajid Anand. By all means, if it does, then maybe offline we could discuss that. To my understanding, my usage of prayojana is the ultimate objective, the ultimate lakshana, as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami mentions. But thank you, great question.
Hare Krishna, any more questions? There are no more questions. Yes.
I have another question concerning the verse today. I don't know, perhaps I'm in Mauritius a bit cut off. I've never met a Buddhist, I've never met a Buddhist. But according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, like the way impersonalis is described, like I remember like Lord Chaitanya as Nimai when his mother was convincing Lord Chaitanya not to eat the mud. There's a difference between the food and the mud. So I understood impersonalism in that way. And there's a lot of explanation of impersonalism in CC. So that level of impersonalism, the way those impersonalists, like the hardcore impersonalists, do we still have those type of people, correctly speaking?
Oh, big time. People are impersonalists even without understanding it. And this verse, okay, so I should say the hidden purport is actually where Srila Prabhupada answers this again in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is in CC Adi 153. And Srila Prabhupada gives a whole nother purport to the exact same verse We don't have the opportunity to talk about it now, but to this point, maybe I'll read a little bit of it, okay? Because that answers this point perfectly. And actually, KrishnaDas Kaviraj Goswami says that in this verse, if you look, how does it start? If people have access, please go to CC, Adi Leela, first chapter, 53rd verse. Aham eva sham eva gre. So we've had aham, that means I. Nanyat yat sad asad param. Paschat aham yat etachcha. Yo vashishyeta so smyaham. My God, I can't say this word. So smyaham. So 3 times aham or I has been made. And KrishnaDas Kaviraj Goswami says the Lord is saying aham 3 times. Why? To emphatically impose upon people that I is not you. I am an individual. 3 times he said it. 3 times. It's not a question of we. It's a question of I. So the Lord is making that distinction. And Srila Prabhupada says in this purport, aham means I. Therefore, the speaker who is saying aham, I, must have his own personality. The Mayavadi philosophers interpret this word aham as referring to the impersonal Brahman. The Mayavadis are very proud of their grammatical knowledge, but any person who has actual knowledge of grammar can understand that aham means I, and that I refers to a personality. Therefore, the personality of Godhead, speaking to Brahma, uses aham while describing his own transcendental form. Aham has a specific meaning. It is not a vague term that can be whimsically interpreted. Aham, when spoken by Krishna, refers to the supreme personality of Godhead and nothing else. So, Mayavadis do exist. Mayavadis, you'll see that many of the big, again, personalities on YouTube, I won't name names, but you're probably well aware of so-called spiritualists who are on YouTube. And if you listen to some of the things they say are interesting, kind of useful, inspirational, but if you actually get into their Siddhanta and the way that they treat the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the way that they treat the Vedas, I don't want that Lakshana. I don't want to treat Krishna like he's just some other dude. You know, I want to have the core of my heart at the dust of his lotus feet. And that's why Mayavadis definitely exist. And they minimize the Supreme Lord. Why? In order to elevate themselves. If I minimize somebody else, then my importance becomes, by association, by correlation, greater. Oh, he's just a guy. That's just a guy. And I'm just a guy. He's an important guy. He's an important guy. But I'm also an important guy. No. Eti chamsa kalau pumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. All of the different anksas of the Lord, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. He is Bhagavan Swayam. He is the cause of all the other ankshas, all the other parshadas, all the other avatars have come from Krishna. That's why we don't minimize the Lord. We don't negate the Lord and say we're all just from the same primordial soup. If we're all from the same primordial soup, why is it that Brahma, the greatest being in this universe, is having an existential crisis? And why is the Lord not saying we? If he's giving this person, the most capable person, why doesn't he cut straight to the point? We're all one, blah, blah, blah. Brahma can understand. His body is pure intelligence after all. He's not, doesn't have a gross body. His body is pure intelligence. He can understand. No, he says, aham, he makes a distinction from the outset. So this is very clear. Am I answering your question? And that's why actually there are many, many verses in CC. So here I would say that if we go to the 25th chapter, and then the final point I'll make on this verse, right, is that this verse is discussed by Jiva Goswami in the 25th chapter of Madhya Leela, mostly. 25th chapter of Madhya Leela. And do you know what that chapter is entitled? Does anyone have a guess what that chapter is entitled? That chapter is entitled How All the Residents of Varanasi Became Vaishnavas. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used these 4 verses, Chatra Shloki, to take everyone with misunderstanding and bring them to the platform of understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And by the way, Varanasi, is the capital of Mayavad, because that's where Shankaracharya did most of his, that was his mutt. That's where he did most of his preaching. And the leader in the Maya capital, the captain of the Maya capital, was Prakashananda Saraswati. And we don't have time. I wanted to get into that. Prakashananda Saraswati became a Vaishnava on the basis of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanation of these 4 verses of the Chaturshloki, which all his kind of misunderstanding was dissipated in much the same way that the Atmaram verse dissipated all the misunderstandings of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in Jagannath Puri. But again, I'm sure hopefully they'll be picked up in the week of classes you have ahead. Yes, enjoy this, delve deep, and derive many profound realizations from these 4 verses, the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. Thank you all. Is there anything else, Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, you stir up so many questions.
Go
I'm
ahead.
thinking about, equality, think of the other person as yourself. And but we are told to worship devotees, senior devotees, and be humble and bow to them and serve them wholeheartedly like you do your guru or your Krishna. So how does that fit? Sorry.
I think if anything that supports, because if we are bowing down, right? So when I said, are you bringing up this point because of what I said about some online personalities and how they try and elevate themselves?
Yeah, as well as you said something earlier on about, the other person, is no different than me and you, that kind of thing.
No, sorry. So to be fully clear, that there's a personality who tries to make out that Krishna and himself are non-different.
Okay, all right, yeah.
He's trying to say that Krishna is just a guy who had some spiritual knowledge. Ram is just a guy who has some spiritual knowledge. And I'm also a guy that has some spiritual knowledge. So we're all God to you, which is clearly not the case. Now, in terms of being respectful to people, you see, to the extent somebody can help us to realize that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to that degree, I treat that person like the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Because he's promoting God's greatness. Right?
Yeah.
It's like the ambassador. The ambassador of a country is treated as well as in the absence of the president, is treated as good as the president, because he is the representative of the president. Do you see? So if an ambassador visits on an official call, you have to treat him like you're dealing with the president. If you just like give him a slap and chuck him in jail, you will have the same recrimination as if you did that to the president of a country directly, because he's a representative. So we understand that anyone who utters the holy name of Krishna is worthy of our Dandavat Pranam. Why? Because that person has Krishna on his lips, he has Krishna on his heart, he's aspiring to be with Krishna. So we offer our pranams to that person, because that person can, well, I'll speak for myself, help fallen souls like us become more serious about coming in touch with the Lord. So that's not to say that we're trying to minimize.
Haribol, yes, thank you. Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you very much. I think we have exhausted our time, so we will not take any further questions, but we request Prabhuji to again join us next Thursday instead of joining us the Thursday after that.
Done.
If your program or if your schedule supports us. But let us conclude today's session and with welcoming all the devotees onto this group. We have met after 15 days and it feels like 15 years. But let us chant Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhaya
Namo Namah. Nantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Hari
Let's
Hari
chant
Bol.
Haribol. Let's chant the Mahamantra once to glorify Prabhuji for today's class. Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Hare.
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Rama,
Hare
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 Ram,
Rama,
Ram
Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
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 His Grace KrishnaArjuna Prabhuji ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai,
ISKCON Eldoret ki jai.
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 Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare